that hit District 7 very heavily, and that is Hurricane Harvey. That the incumbent left the district exposed and has not shown much leadership. As you talk to constituents, what are their concerns, and what would you do in Washington to aid them in their recovery and try to protect them from a future weather disaster?
Well, aid and recovery is what FEMA does, and it's taken a long time to get the FEMA funding through Congress, but it's finally happened. And it's not entirely clear whether there's money in there for the Corps of Engineers, for Texas, for Harris County to finish our flood control projects or to repair and maintain Barker and Addicks dams. That's not very clear as to what's happened. What would I do? Well, as you know, I've run before, and we've been flooded before. 2015, 2016, the folks in Meyerland and Braesway area were just hammered. Very devastating. And then Hurricane Harvey came and flooded a lot more people out in the Cypher area, Cinco Ranch, even below the dams when the Corps had to open them up. All of this is man-made for the most part. It's preventable. And to put a fine point on it, what's the solution? I don't want to sound crass, but money. That Democratic Congressman Al Green introduced last session H.R. 5025, which would have given the Corps of Engineers $311 million to finish every single flood control project in Harris County, not just Braes Bayou, not just the dams, every project. That didn't pass. That could not get through Republican Congress. Instead, now after Harvey, Republican Congress is appropriating almost $20 billion with a B for FEMA relief to help people who've been devastated by the storm. So, I'm very proud of the fact that I was part of the Clinton administration. I'm very proud of the fact that Bill Clinton was the last president to balance the federal budget. And I think there needs to be some fiscal responsibility. That means investing in flood control projects to prevent the injury in the first place. It means investing in America and a lot of other investments that are just not happening in the current Congress. That's what I would have done. It's still not too late. Still elect me and send me to Washington to get this done.
You've spoken out strongly on immigration as well, and we have an ongoing stalemate in the Congress regarding not only the Dreamers, but on whether it's prudent to spend American tax dollars building a wall. Can you talk about that?
Well, in my view, the job of a member of Congress is to represent local issues at the federal level. I'm very proud of the people of Houston. This has always been a very welcoming city and community. In fact, 4 or 5 years ago, the Greater Houston Partnership, which is a coalition of our business organizations here, came out and said that undocumented workers should have a path to citizenship. They should be brought out of the shadows. As business people, they want the workers. They also realize that we're missing a lot of local tax revenue because of this, but it's also the right thing to do. And that's what Houston wants. That's what Texas wants. But that's not what our elected leaders are doing in Washington right now. And so, what do I want? I want to keep families together. I want to be, like I said earlier, fiscally responsible that a multi-billion-dollar wall built along the base of a pretty significant river, which is a pretty good border to turn already, is a waste of money. Let's put that money elsewhere because there's an opportunity cost. It's not just building the wall, it's what you're not doing with the money otherwise that makes it a wasteful, bad idea. So I want to represent the people, I want to represent their wishes, I want to represent the business community who has always been embracing of immigrants and refugees.
You've also spoken out strongly on education. Two particular issues, universal pre-K and the advantages that way, as well as expanding STEM education and STEM programs. Can you share with us there?
Oh, absolutely. 30 states right now, because the federal government has failed to fund universal pre-K. 30 states have taken the initiative to find the money because it is so important and it's so successful wherever it's done. In fact, I believe San Antonio found money to do with locally there. Again, our leaders in Austin and Washington, D.C. are not providing early pre-K education for the people here in Harris County, so we need to do it from Washington. You also mentioned STEM education. We are the beneficiaries of the world-class Texas Medical Center. That would not exist if it wasn't for a lot of very bright people getting a very good education on science, technology, math, and engineering. So that's the future. That's the future of not only America, but of the Texas Medical Center. It's the future of industry. When you have an offshore rig in the oil and gas industry, you're talking a very complex, multi-billion-dollar operation. Who's going to design that? Who's going to build that? I want that to be Houstonians.
You've had experience with the Department of Energy. You have guided our own city in terms of their energy policy. And it's no secret that the energy corridor goes right through District 7.
Mm-hmm.
Does that give you an advantage in terms of the type of representation people can expect?
Absolutely, absolutely. Right now, we really do not have a national energy policy. And I think that coming from the energy capital, being an energy lawyer, energy expert, would afford me the opportunity to fill that void. And it means not just about me being able to talk about my favorite subject. What I see happening is the oil and gas industry is laying off people by the thousands right now. There's a huge transition going on in the energy field. At the same time, the renewable energy industry, wind and solar, they're hiring, but they're only hiring in the hundreds. We need to support them, we need to embrace them so they can give jobs to the displaced oil and gas workers. And not only that, but part of the change that's happening in the industry right now is that renewable energy is not being led by Texans and Houstonians. It's coming out of California and other places. One great example I like to give is that some months ago, General Motors announced that by 2030, all of their plants will run on renewable energy. Great. However, the first two deals they announced were by a Chicago company and by a Boston company, not a Texas or Houston company. And so I want Houston to shine as the energy capital, not just now, but 10, 20, 50 years in the future when we embrace renewable energy, because that is what the future of the energy corridor is.
The DCCC recently got involved in this race. And there are those who would look at James Cargas and say, James could benefit from that. But you've spoken out pretty strongly on it. Do you think they should have stuck their nose into your race?
It's the way I look at it is that I think the Democratic Party, and not just nationally, needs to learn from its losses, needs to learn from mistakes. In 2016, we saw how the DNC kind of favored one primary candidate over another. The result, the predictable result, was backlash. And a lot of young people and kind of new voters who supported Bernie Sanders stayed home in November. And we got Donald Trump elected. I don't want that to happen again. So I think that, first of all, the information they put out has already been out there on Facebook. It's on social media. It's not like they discovered something new. But frankly, it's up to the voters here to decide, and the voters really don't care. The voters here in Houston, like I said earlier, embrace people moving here. Whether they move from Washington, D.C., whether they move from overseas, you move to Houston, you're welcome here. And that goes for my opponents who moved here recently as well.
This is a deep and talented field. And I think it's safe to say that your participation, your activity in that district helped Hillary Clinton carry the district in 2016. Why? How do you rise above this pack? Why are you the best choice? And this is my final question.
Well, I think it comes down to experience. So we've talked about my job experience, that if the voters send me to Washington to represent them, I don't have a learning curve. I can hit the ground running on day one. I've worked on Capitol Hill. I have friends on Capitol Hill. I know what the job entails and how to get things done. But there's also campaign experience. As you know, I've run before, and part of that is getting out into the district, meeting people, listening to people, hearing what their issues are. Not talking, but being quiet and listening. That's a very important thing, and it's a very big district. You know, it's not easily done. And part of it, too, is the voters getting to know you. I think that's lost on some of these flashy, large campaigns that come out of nowhere. That what I find is the first time you go to a homeowner association meeting, you know, they're very nice, they're polite, they're happy to meet you. They know you want their vote. But the second, third, fourth time you go back to that meeting, they get it, that you really do care about their issues. You really do want to hear what they have to say, and that you really are there for them. And that's what it takes, time to get to know people and for people to get to know you. So yes, that's what's happened in 2016 by running multiple times in this race, is getting to know the voters, getting to know their issues, and then getting to know me. I'm very proud of the fact that I earned 44% in 2016, which is the highest any Democrat has done since 1964. But at the same time, the base vote in this district for Democrats, say straight ticket voting for Democrats, a lot of the judges got in the 39 to 40% range. So I'm reaching the independents. I'm reaching people who switch back and forth. And you know, this is not a wildly partisan district. This is a district made up of very well-educated people who make up their minds and do their research on each individual candidate. Because, yes, Hillary Clinton won this district. She won it with a lot of Republican votes. At the same time, I did not win. John Culberson got reelected. Well, what does that tell you? Split ticket voting. That's what this district's about. Voters need to get to know you, to vote for you. That's a huge advantage I have over my primary opponents, besides the fact that I have experience to do the job when I get there.
I'm going to break my last statement and ask you one more, because you've written about this issue as well.
Okay.
And Congress is dealing with it right now. You know, we're still in grief over the 17 killed in Parkland, Florida, and you have talked about the need for some reforms in the wake of yet another massacre. What are your thoughts, and what would you try to do on the Hill?
It's awful. It's awful, and as a candidate, we're expected to issue statements, and it's really heartbreaking to have to do it again and again, and I want to stop. But I think that, you know, continuing order, not just in the area of gun violence, there's a lot of areas where Congress is just shirking their duty. There are simple things that can be done right now, and I kind of put them into two different buckets. There's simple, low-hanging fruit that Congress can do now, banning bump stocks, doing comprehensive background checks, no fly, no buy, where if the FBI says you're too dangerous to fly in a plane, it should be too dangerous to buy a gun. Sharing mental health information from the Social Security Administration or other agencies with ATF. Those are easy things to do that should have been done a long time ago. Now, these simple things will not prevent every mass shooting, but I think it's totally irresponsible to not do anything. The second bucket, I think, are some more long-range things that deserve some congressional hearings. During the Clinton administration, we had a ban on assault weapons. It expired, but it also wasn't perfect either. because there are certain guns that were omitted from that list, certain guns that were on that list that probably shouldn't belong there, and there was no mechanism to update it and change it. There's been a lot of concern about due process rights. Those are legitimate concerns under the Second Amendment. I think there should be congressional hearings to have a more comprehensive control of gun violence and more comprehensive legislation. But there's some simple things they should have done yesterday.
Thanks for coming in. Enjoyed talking to you. You're a smart guy.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Enjoyed
All
it.
right. Will you get a quick two-shot of it? Go ahead. What, it seems that there's a collegial and a very, and some pride in the fact that this race has been, I guess, one without contention over issues, but not on personalities.
Yes, so here's an amazing stat for you. In 2016, with all the excitement over Hillary and Bernie, over Hillary and Donald Trump, huge national election going on. 132,000 registered voters in this district still stayed home. And so the wonderful thing about this crowded primary that we have right now in District 7 is the excitement. The excitement is reaching deep into the district. And a lot of those folks who stayed home kind of regret it. They see the results, they feel bad, and so we need to forgive them and welcome them and get them voting, because that's what democracy is about. And so I've really enjoyed this crowded primary. I've enjoyed the excitement. I've enjoyed the national attention, and it's been really healthy for our democracy here locally.